Hey, this is Erin. I'm one of the coaches inside of Career Strategy Lab, and I want to let you know that this episode you're about to listen to, number one, is awesome, and number two is actually from our open house. So, in this conversation, you should know that there were other people on this call and there was a live audience. So, if some of the editing seems a little bit weird or abrupt, that's why. It should still make sense for you. There's so many gems of wisdom to grab from this episode. So, we hope you enjoy. And if you do like this format where you really can get to know someone and learn more about their career journey, please let us know. You can send Sarah a LinkedIn message or you can email hello@sarahdoody.com. We love the feedback and we want to create more of what you enjoy and find helpful. All right, let's get into the episode.
All right. I've been told you cannot hear the chickens in the background, but I'm currently in Hawaii and the chickens decided to come and announce themselves. So, what's your kind of where you are today and what you were doing before situation?
I was laid off in March for a job where I worked for 11 years. So I've been out of the job market for quite a while. My background is as a UX designer, but my last job, I had kind of transitioned into being, I guess, a kind of a UX expert or UX educator, writing more about UX, doing some documentation, things like that, and less of a hands-on UI UX designer. And so I was a little bit of a switcher also, and when I started CSL, I kind of had a few different UX related paths that I was interested in, and I ended up going back into full-time UI UX design for a government contractor, TDIT, working on a very large project to modernize software that's used by the federal courts system, which it's amazing. It's about 25 years old. It's really in need of it, so it's kind of fun. But yeah, I was a little bit nervous getting back into the field of UI UX design, but happy to be reemployed and happy to know that my skills are still there and coming back.
One of the first things we do is have you go through creating the career roadmap. So, essentially, a product roadmap ish for your career. And I'm curious if you want to share how that process of creating that career roadmap, essentially a miniature user research project on yourself, where you are asking yourself questions, you're asking other people questions, you're gathering lots of qualitative information to then really guide you through that process of creating a resume, creating your LinkedIn, et cetera, et cetera. And in a perfect world, I would not let anyone touch their resume or LinkedIn or anything until they finish this roadmap, because it's such an important step in clarifying your vision. It's like, if we try to create a product without a product roadmap, incoming disaster, right? And same thing applies to this. So I'm curious, reflecting back, how did that step of creating your career roadmap influence you as a person, as a professional, and also really how you approached the resume, the LinkedIn, the networking, the portfolio, et cetera?
My
Yeah.
story is kind of related. For me, I think that early portion was what I was really craving and looking for almost more than anything else. Because, like I said, I'd worked one job for over a decade. I had some severance. I knew I wasn't really in a hurry, and I really felt like I was kind of at this crossroads, and I wanted a program that was going to kind of put that front and center rather than just focusing on optimizing your resume or that sort of thing. So I think that was my favorite part, just the way it got you thinking about things. And I really had a lot of fun with that. And it was, yeah, like I said, what I was really craving at that time, because the layoff came as a bit of a surprise. And I knew that I could go in a bunch of directions, but I really had no idea. I had done no reflection. And so that was really a perfect opportunity for me to get started. And I wouldn't have been ready to do any of the other steps if I hadn't spent
Mhm.
a lot of time doing that first.
Yeah, I think it's so easy to just jump into rush mode and I need to update my resume. I need to go to coffee meetups. I need to go to in-person online meetups. I need to update my portfolio, all of the things. But you kind of end up just running around like a, no pun intended, like a chicken with its head cut off, as we were
Mhm.
talking about the chickens here in Hawaii. But with the compass statement, it helps serve as like that North Star so that when it is time to decide what bullet points do I put on my resume, what projects do I put in my portfolio? What could I highlight in a cover letter, or which jobs should I even apply to or entertain? It makes all of those decisions so much easier because you have this kind of filter to run all those decisions through. There's that hashtag or movement like build in public, right? And I think in the job search and in advancing our careers, oftentimes that is not a very public thing, right? A lot of people kind of stay in a silo when it comes to their resume and their LinkedIn and job search and all that. And what we keep hearing over and over is the ability to no longer do this all in a silo on your own and have a community, I think helps so much with accountability, first of all, right? But also the confidence level setting, if you will, and that you realize, hey, this isn't just me. I'm not the only person that struggles with XYZ. No matter how many years of experience, no matter what amazing company names you have on your resume, everyone struggles with this stuff because it's not something we have to do every day. And yeah, it can be intimidating, but when you step out of that silo and do it kind of in community, I think there's such empowerment with that. And I'm curious, like, if you have anything else around the idea of like the community and how it maybe impacted you, whether it's accountability or who knows what.
I really felt what you said about not feeling alone. And I think that was one of the things that really helped me. I actually wish that I had taken more advantage of that. I attended a few of the mindset calls and they were really, really helpful. But in retrospect, I wish I had, joined every week and done more to like push myself out more outside of my comfort zone and do more out in the open and kind of share more things in progress. I think that did limit me a little bit. So I kind of regret that I didn't take more advantage of that, but still overall, I was glad to feel that I was part of a group of people who weren't there to judge me and, and just that we were kind of all going through this together. But those kind of softer areas like the mindset calls, I really wish that I had taken more advantage of those.
Yeah, the mindset calls are so popular and for all the reasons you've just described, right? Like, sure, it's very helpful for someone to tell you, what if you replace this word on your resume with this word, or, tactical stuff like that. But it's equally helpful to have a place where you can tackle topics like confidence, mindset, time management, productivity management, feelings of inadequacy because your previous company or boss, didn't value you and stuff like that. And when you combine that very tactical element with this very heart element, let's say, I think that's really what helps people move more quickly and more efficiently in their job search, because you're not getting stuck like in the quicksand of all this negative thinking and stuff that's swirling around in your heads. But one thing I want to touch on is the more tactical stuff. I'm curious, we talked about the career roadmap. I would love to shift more into things like resume, portfolio, et cetera. And Leon, I remember you had said that you felt like your resume was what ended up getting you the interview, and your portfolio really helped you kind of land the offer. And I'm curious, you know, how do you feel, or what was kind of key differences between the before version of your resume or portfolio versus what you used when you applied for your jobs?
Well, one thing that I definitely did right was not think that I could produce a good resume on my own. So I don't think I applied anywhere before I started CSL. I knew that my resume needed a total overhaul. The resume template that you created was incredibly helpful just for getting over that barrier of what's a good format for this, just kind of following that to a T and just replacing the text and really having thought hard about what those key bullet points are and how to phrase them in terms of accomplishments and as much measurable stuff as possible. And I in the beginning was sending that out and I was getting some responses, and then I was thinking, oh, it's because my resume doesn't have all the keywords. And so I actually like signed up for some of those services that, will do your resume score or kind of help you get all the right keywords and everything like that. And then I realized that I wasn't having any more success with that. And so I kind of really got into this mindset of trying to hack the ATS. And then eventually I came back to where I started in CSL, which is that it's not about that. It's about it, eventually more or less people are reading your resume and it really is about fit. And I got a lot more careful and deliberate about where I applied. For a while, I was kind of using that, spray and pray or whatever approach, and I was not having any luck with it. And so I think ultimately it was just having a resume that I felt really represented me and just having the patience and persistence. And yeah, what I found is that every interview I did get, I was a really good fit for, with the exception of one. And that's because I think there's a lot of recruiters out there that really don't know what to look for. And so that's something that we don't have a lot of control over. But one out of the, 8 or 10 or so interviews I had was a bad fit, but all of the other ones were really good. By just looking at my resume compared to the job. And, I think I was really close in a lot of those cases. And so because of that, when I got those interviews and I got to that portfolio round, I felt confident that the portfolio was going to represent, something that was going to resonate with them. And so thinking of the portfolio in a different way, the CSL way, was really helpful. So I actually ended up only doing one case study because that was really where I had the most material, and I felt like it really spoke to my skill set, and that was a really good way to match myself to the job. And now that I've started this job that I got through using that resume and portfolio, it really is like a huge overlap with what I demonstrated in my portfolio. So I think it really is just about having the right package, making sure you're really prepared when presenting it, and then just being persistent and patient until that right one comes along. And I'm really glad that I was prepared, because the worst thing would have been to have not been prepared for the right position. If you get rejected from something that's not the right position, that's one thing. But if it's a job that you should have gotten and you don't have it together, or you don't have something that's representative, then that would really be a shame. So I felt really good that my portfolio especially was a really good match to the job I ended up getting.
And I just want to fact check something just so the audience is clear. Your portfolio had one project in it,
Yes.
one project / case study. Yeah. And I want to highlight that because I know if you're on LinkedIn or social media or medium.com, it's the age-old debate that's never going to end, I guess, around like these mythical rules that your portfolio has to have 3 to 5 projects. And we say this all the time, that actually that is false. You can get hired with a portfolio with just one project in it if you do a really excellent job at explaining what you did, why you did it, how you did it, etc. And it's not just like this cookie cutter checklist style portfolio. So something for everyone to keep in mind, because here's the thing, and it kind of touches on what you mentioned, but if you had taken, in your case, another X number of weeks to have 3 projects in your portfolio because some LinkedIn article said that, you may not be in the job you're in right now because you would have been too busy finishing out those other 2 projects instead of applying, right? So I think it's very, very important to remind people of that, because people get hired with one project all the time, and here's proof.
Yeah, and actually, just to add to that, I looked at the analytics. I put that one portfolio project on my website. And so for a while, I was thinking, oh, it must be because I don't have enough portfolio projects on my website that I'm not getting more hits. And, I was in the process of, trying to make another one that might help. But I was looking at my analytics and I was getting very few hits from the places I was applying. Most of the time that companies were making a decision, it was based on my resume. So most, 90% of the places I applied did not even look at my portfolio, or maybe even higher percentage. So I know in the end that it wasn't the fact that I didn't have more projects on my website or my portfolio that kept me from getting a job sooner.
Yeah, it's like when you have, many, many, many different inputs, it makes it hard to take action because a lot of those inputs can conflict. And if you want to make progress, one of the ways to do that is to commit to a certain method or approach and just follow that. It's like I have a friend that's a physical therapist, and we often discuss the similarities in the work we do. And she says, people come to me and they've been piecing together YouTube videos and Instagram physical therapist influencers and blah, blah, blah. But they're doing all these exercises that like conflict and don't help because they're not like rooted in the same approach. Leon, do you have anything?
Yeah, I would say for me, what I learned is that, or what I came to see is it's really hard out there right now for people in UX and a lot of industries after the layoffs. And when I started CSL, I knew I needed help, but I didn't know how hard it was really going to be out there. And the timing, I've always had really good timing for all of my career until now. I kind of got into UX right as the wave was starting, and I never had trouble getting a job in UX, either because I knew people or because I had been in it long enough that I had more experience than the people who were just, getting out of boot camp or something like that. So my resume was able to, jump to the top of the pile, even if it wasn't perfect. And it's definitely not the case at all now. So having a program, I mean, it really is a time where you need all the help that you can get. And some things that I really appreciated was, one thing for me in the beginning was just, it was such a shock to be laid off, especially not working the first time in such a long time. And doing CSL, because it was so structured, it felt like work or maybe school or something like that. So it allowed me to still get up in the morning and, have something to do, have something to go to, and, having some routine around my family and getting the kids to school. It still felt like an ordinary day most days, which was really important and really kept me from kind of like, falling into kind of a bad place. And so it was really helpful, especially in the beginning when I'm just, wrapping my head around this idea of not no longer being employed and being scared and all of that stuff, but having people that I was working with, having assignments, being able to chat with people. So much of it felt like work. And so in a lot of ways, it was kind of a transition from work to work, and that it didn't feel like this kind of just massive hole where I, was totally lost. And the other thing I would say is that, another discovery was that there really aren't any hacks or shortcuts. I mean, I know a ton of people in UX that I've worked with. I got like probably about 10 references or, referrals for jobs, and I got 0 interviews out of them. Whereas in the past, I figured that would at least get me, several interviews. And so it's really just the new landscape out there, and I did several things to try to optimize my resume for, the ATS and whatever and keywords, and that didn't work either. So really it's about having a good path to follow that's proven and making your work quality. And, that's really what's going to make you stand out. And you really need a good structured programs that's kind of, basically evidence-based and really backed by a lot of experience, because you really need to find a way to really stand out, which is not easy at all right now.
Yeah. And I think what you said about having Career Strategy Lab feel like school is really interesting perspective, because I think, there's probably people who are not working right now who could go your route and treat it like a 9 to 5. And I think there's also people who maybe are in a 9 to 5. And if they're wondering like, oh my gosh, how do I make it work for me? Rest assured, we definitely have people who've been through Career Strategy Lab who were currently employed and didn't grind it 9 to 5 like a job. We've kind of created different tracks, if you will, or suggested tracks, depending on the time you have available to put into this. All right, I think that's all we have time for. So I want to first say thank you, Leon, for graciously giving their time and answering tons of questions. So that's that. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we will talk to you soon.